Good evening and welcome to Caribbean Chocolate Cake 2023. It's good to be back with a whole new series of beers, with some new can designs, and of course, Sean Knight on a live tasting. How are we doing, Sean?
Yeah, good. A little bit of a rush on, but settled in for a good
At
tasting.
least you got in this time. A few years ago, you locked yourself out of your house, so at least we're in.
I nearly left my keys inside when I popped up to the car to get the last beers. So yeah, it's tradition.
Good times. Well, we're here now. And I forgot to start the stream 5 minutes early, so we had a whole 5-minute countdown that no one actually saw. So there we go. But we are live now, and hopefully people can see us. Sean, first things first, we've got a lot of beer to get through this evening, so we're going to crack straight on with our first beer of the evening, which is Nitro Caribbean Chocolate Cake. So if you're drinking along with us at home, grab yourself a Nitro Caribbean Chocolate Cake. Now, we're going to be using the glass that we've provided this year, the brand new CCC glass for this. But Sean, tell me about this glass. It's not actually ideal for Nitro, is it?
No, so you also feel this can's a little more rigid than the other cans. That's because it is a nitro can. If you haven't had nitro before, it'll just make the beer nice and smooth, give that nice nitro kind of effect that you get on nitro beers. And the glass normally would be a taller, thinner glass that allows the cascade effect. But I think this will let the head sit nicely on top. And I think with the way we have to have our nitro beers work is you got to pour hard. So can upside down, get the beer out as fast as you can. Don't overfill the glass, and watch that. But that'll create a nice foamy head, a nice creamy head, and yeah, then you can sip and enjoy.
Let's give it a go then.
Cool.
All right. So it's not, as you say, it's not the ideal glass for hard pouring. So I'm actually not going to go right to the top, but here we go.
You still get a cascade effect, but it's not as long as when we have a longer glass.
That would have been fine.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's see if my camera's going to focus on this, because that is a beautiful cascade you got going on there, Sean.
Yeah.
So explain to me about what this is. Tell us a bit about nitro and why that's important to beer, and what the difference is with carbonation.
Carbonation can have like a acidic bite to it, and you get it in all soft drinks and all carbonated drinks. And nitro is really nice to lose that carbonic acid acidity. Just makes the beer smoother. The bubbles are smaller and tighter, and just creates that mouthfeel and flow that you really want when you're drinking a beer like this. Yeah. So
it makes it so much more great. Sort of like, I don't know. It's just that beautiful creaminess. It's almost like a thicker caramel. Does it affect aroma at all? Like, I've heard some people say that they get less aroma off nitro beers, but I'm plenty getting good aroma off this.
So carbonation breaks out really easily and will lift up aromas with you, or with the beer while you're trying to smell it and drink it. But these creamy heads can lock in a bit of flavor, but they also hold flavor. And I think in a beer like this, with all the cacao that we put in, the chocolate still comes through. You can smell it really. I can smell it really strongly on this one, and it's a big part of Caribbean chocolate cake. So,
amen. All right. Well, we're going to get into this beer soon. And we're going to get into talking about this beer, but it's not just us tonight, Sean. We have 3 guests with us. So you may have seen at the start of this whole process, we put out, we were looking for 10 people to come on board as early tasters, where we sent them the beers, they taste them for us, and they put some reviews up for us. So we're lucky to be joined by 3 members of that panel, which is Nikki, Royston, which I've definitely probably got wrong again, and Lisa. Good evening. How are we all?
All good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
So let's do a few introductions here, one by one. Lisa, tell us a bit about yourself.
So I grew up in Germany, and my first love of beer was basically a Pils. And then I moved to the UK, and I fell in love with bitters. And now I just generally love beer. I write
What's
stories
your-
basically about beer and cider and that kind of drinky experience.
Yeah, so you have a blog, right? Do you want to give
I
your
do.
blog a plug?
Yeah, so it's Drinkies with a Chimp, basically, at substack.com. If you want to
Nice.
follow that.
Check it out. Nikki, tell us about yourself.
So I discovered craft beer back in 2013, and then I gave up 10 years in retail and became a trainee brewer in 2021. And I'm now leading the brew house at Curious down in Kent.
Nice. And making some beautiful beers as well. With we were just talking about the wild beer contract nowadays as well, or the wild beer brands. Fantastic to have you. And Royshin, did I get it right that time?
No, but the rule is
No.
I'll tell you twice, and if you don't get it right the second time, you get one of these. Now,
Okay.
So I'm Roisin.
Roisin.
Yeah, I am an alcoholic, and that's why nothing really about me, really. I like going to the pub, I like good beers, and that's it. What's not more to like about a lady?
No, absolutely. And thank you all so much. Like everyone, the panel did some fantastic reviews. I'm actually just going to play one of the reviews that we had that we did an edit for from Paul's Beer Reviews on YouTube. And this is what he had to say about this beer.
Hello and welcome back to Paul's Beer Reviews. On that, it's got a beautiful colour to it. Wow, but I mean, that's just unmistakable chocolate. Smells gorgeous. Oh, wow. I keep making that noise. Whoa, I've got a silly grin on my face. That's always an indication that I'm enjoying a beer. Unmistakable chocolate, milk chocolate, beautiful mouthfeel, creamy, smooth, glides down. It's not overly sweet at all. There's a nice sort of balanced sweetness. Oh, it is glorious. Wow, that's lovely. That's a proper treat, proper pudding of a beer. I've done a bloody good job on that. Lovely, roasty, sweet, chocolatey, smooth as silk. Yeah, it's delicious. That is lovely. That is really, really nice. This is anything but standard. Proper milk chocolate. That is a gorgeous beer. That really is nice. And just like that, she's gone. I didn't realise how much I was in the mood for something like that. Yeah. Lovely beer, proper dessert treat of a beer. I'm going to give that a solid 9 out of 10. Really impressed with that.
Fantastic. I'm going to come to the panel first. What was your kind of rating on this beer? Did you find, Lisa?
Oh, that was really high. I wouldn't say a 5 out of 5 because you can't go that high, but a 4.5 out of 5.
Nice,
it was amazing.
9 out of 10. Nikki?
Yeah, I'd give it a good 4.5 as well. It's one of my favourites out of the set, actually, as well.
Nice. Roisin?
Go on, Tim. I think when I was giving you my reviews, I gave this a 14,472 out of 10. So yeah, it was as the least experienced probably out of all of us here. This is a lovely little drop. Yeah, it's delicious.
All right then, Sean, tell us about this beer. One of the things that was said there was the sort of balanced sweetness. So tell us a bit about what's going on.
We used a bit of things that we learned last year in our CCC project in Caribbean chocolate cake this year. And one of the things was we played around with some longer boils and increasing the amount of cacao we put in. I also wanted to bring the wood up to the forefront of the beer again. And I think it's quite an important thing that we look at with Caribbean chocolate cake. We don't like to call it a pastry stout because we put like the cypress wood in there to dry the beer out and balance the tannins from the wood dried out, as well as adding great character like vanilla, and like there's a creamy cracker wafer kind of thing that comes in from the cypress wood. But those tannins kind of dry out and make you want to have another sip as it finishes. So it's not left with a sweet finish. The reason we put this one on Nitro is we wanted to bring, a few years back, we decided to do that and wanted to bring Caribbean Chocolate Cake Original back up to the forefront. And I think it's worked really well with it. So we just keep it on a nitro beer. It creates a nice big body. So longer boils have created less fermentable sugars, as well as creating more flavor as the beer's boiling. The sugars are caramelizing. We played around with the grist a little bit this year. We got, I think we stuck with the same amount of lactose, but then the cacao we upped quite a lot this year, and really wanted to get that chocolate hit on the nose as well as in the flavor.
Nice. Nikki, as a brewer yourself, what Sean's saying there sort of resonating with you? Like, have you experimented with any longer boils and things like that?
Not yet. I mean, I've just started brewing Millionaire, which is a favourite I hear down there. But no, not at the minute. No.
Is it something you're intrigued with? That prospect?
Yeah. So it's something I'm definitely keen to play about with.
The only problem is you have to stay in the brewery all night. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yeah. I'm doing that anyway, pretty much. So.
Yeah. I think it was like a fun opportunity last year to really push stouts, because every year our big stout release is Caribbean chocolate cake, and it was nice to just take that little year off and really think about stouts in a really different way. And we worked with some really exciting breweries to really get that push the boundaries of what we can do. The longest boil we did was a 22-hour boil, which I look back now and go, that's probably longer than you need, but actually it was really interesting. So yeah, it's just a good way to kind of bring stuff back into Caribbean chocolate cake that we don't normally play around with.
Your mic's gone a bit funky.
Sorry, I think my headphones fell off my.
That's a new one.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah, that is better.
Cool.
So a lot of love for the Nitro there. Not everyone loves Nitro, but mouthfeel is magic. Neil's saying there, and I heartily agree with that. Is the Nitro everything with that mouthfeel, or is there something else going on with the beer itself to bring that?
So the longer boils we did this year, we did 3-hour boils, which is not over the top and quite normal for stouts like this, but it's left us with a much higher finishing gravity in this beer. I think we high 8, maybe even 9 plate on this. I can't remember off the brew sheet, but it was a really nice thing to do. But it's not about just having a higher sugar content. It's like the kind of combination of what sugars are left there, and the boiling longer really helps that. One of the other things was I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, I was thinking about it while I was talking. But it's just something that we want to bring back into all these beers, is that mouthfeel, make it bigger, rounder, smoother. Yeah,
absolutely. So Roisin, you scored this 14 gazillion out of 10 or whatever it was. Why was that? I mean, do you normally give beers that high? You warmed up your evening on a Heineken, apparently. So where does Heineken rate out of
10? I gave it that high score because generally it tasted nice on the mouth. It smelt good. You know, as a person that doesn't like chocolate, I like chocolatey coffee beers and stouts.
Right.
It's a completely different taste to me in my palate. So it was. It was one of my favourites out of the collection, and that would be the reason why. Just a different taste to traditional chocolate bar. It's creamy, it was delicious, had a nice head on it. It was 14 million out of 10.
It worked. Yeah. And you're, I hope you don't mind me mentioning that you are lactose intolerant.
I am indeed, yeah.
But there's obviously lactose in this beer, and this is something I checked and double checked with you before
you did.
signing you up for this and sending you the beers. But...
luckily for me, it's just a cough. Presently, you know, you get to 30 and suddenly get a lactose intolerance, which is fun because I love cheese and stout. So it's just a cough. So if I start going halfway through, that's why.
We'll deal with that. Lisa, what was it about this beer for you that got it such a good high rating?
First of all, it's Nitro. Anything with Nitro is just like blows your brain out, basically. But with this one, I had this like almost a cranberryness to it. You know, like the dried cranberries you get in like when you make, I don't know, cranberry sauce, which was in there, and like a candied orange zest. And it's just so fresh. I mean, that beer, when I opened it, it's just like, wow, this is so fresh. So I actually wanted to ask about the hops situation.
So the original Caribbean chocolate cake, we used a hop that doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't yield well in fields. And it was called OC something. It was orange, coconut, and something else. I can't remember. And so we've kind of switched it up. We played around with hops a few times over the 4 years that I brewed Caribbean chocolate cake. We kind of settled on Saba and Talus to try bring some of that citrus and that coconut to it. But it's not a big part, but it definitely is a background noise that sits there. And the orange zest kind of thing could be coming from that a bit. I think you get a bit of acidity from darker grains that could be bringing that cranberry thing as well. And they can bring like dark berry notes, some of the malts that we use. So it could be coming from that.
No, it was just amazing. It's just, I kept smelling it and thinking, oh yeah, there's orange in there. And I didn't, it's just so hoppy. And it's like, without words, really. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and we do put a decent amount of hops in this to, for on the hot side, just to balance the sweetness with these higher finishing gravities. So you got to have that bitterness. The roast will bring a bit of that, but we need that traditional hop bitterness to really hold up against the sweetness.
No, it's just beautiful. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm going to put Darren's question in there. So earlier on, I spoke to Darren, our founder. I wanted him to be part of this, but he's out this evening, unfortunately. So he just put together 4 questions to ask. So just for everyone watching and you guys on the panel as well, we're going to answer Darren's questions. So as I've said, questions, it's time for questions with Darren.
Since giving Caribbean chocolate cake the Nitro treatment, it's become a firm favourite. It's definitely here to stay. What of our beers would you like to see the Nitro treatment given to?
Here you go. There's a question for everyone watching. What of our beers, what of the current Siren lineup would you like to see getting the Nitro treatment? Sean, I'm actually going to ask you that first because you are the man that could actually do this. What beer would you like to see with some Nitro?
So we played around with it a little bit. I think playing around with some fruited sour beers to get that mouthfeel and smoothness in it is something that is on our mind to play with. Weirdly, Nitro can be quite polarizing. Some people like it, some people don't. And we've had some fun with that, doing like the same beer, half Nitro, selling cans together. But yeah, I think playing around with sour beers to lose that carbonic acid carbonation bite that I've talked about and try to smoothen the sour beers off and get the real like flavors from the acids that we got in sour beers.
Nice. All right, Nikki, what would
I had,
the beers would you like to see with Nitro?
I wanted sour. I put Calypso as my choice,
Calypso.
just to bring out that fruit.
Yeah.
It tries a bit of that bitterness. I've never had a Nitro sour, so it'd be interesting to try.
Nitro Calypso, I'm into. Lisa?
I thought about this and I would go controversial Uncle Zester.
Yeah.
Nitro Uncle Zester. Wow.
It's just the gooiness and it's just rich and it's just would be like a warm blanket.
We often describe Uncle Zester as one of our more mad beers. For those that don't know, it's a beer mead hybrid loaded with honey and citrus zests. So yeah, Nitro version next. Sean, make it happen. Roisin?
So I'm going to probably butcher this, Tim, like you've butchered my name. Pomblablakello is like my favourite sour.
It's 1-1.
And I'd love that to have the Nitro treatment.
So that is one of the sours that we have done Nitro, funny enough. Was it last year or the year before, Sean, we did the Pompomo Celebration? Pompomo Celebration.
It was the one we tried it on, but we did this Pomp has gained a lot of popularity. We just call it Pomp because half of us can't pronounce it either. And it's got a really good reputation now. We make a lot more of it than I thought we'd ever make, and we decided to do a Pomp Fest and did 4 versions of it. And that was one of the ones. That was our little opportunity to trial it, and it worked really nicely. But we haven't come back to it yet.
Well, if you could, Sean, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to say as well, we've got Andy on our comments on YouTube tonight, Yoss on YouTube tonight. I think we're having some problems with Facebook, so if anyone was trying to watch on Facebook, I apologise about that. But yeah, Andy is replying on our comments, and Andy's just said yes, please to Nitro Zester. So we've got me involved and involved. I think we're just going to have to make this happen. So there we go. Nice comment here, Lisa, for the win. There we go.
Yay!
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, any other ideas you've got for that, then please get it down here. So any final thoughts on this one before we sort of move on? Sean, anything else to say about this beer?
I remember the thing that I forgot to say when I was talking. So one of the things is this project has grown year on year, and this year we had to do 2 batches of each just because the demand was high enough. And so it was juggling our spin bot. It was like one of the tightest schedules we've had to just move the spin bot from batch to batch and leave enough window for extra spinning where we needed. So it's great to see this this little project that started years ago growing into such a big thing for us. And it was huge to get out. Like our warehouse team and our web shop team did an incredible job to get all the beers out. It was a huge thing to take on in just the space of a week, I think. So yeah, we've done a really good job.
So
there.
you've mentioned Spinbot there.
Yeah.
So let me just share a picture of the Spinbot here. This thing here with the brewer standing on the thing, that's our Spinbot, which we fill for ingredients. So essentially what happens, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Sean, to get the level of ingredients we want into a beer will just take too long. So with this, we can fill it full of ingredients. We draw beer from the fermentation vessel into the Spinbot, circulates around with all those ingredients, comes back into the fermentation vessel, and then just continually circulates for several days. Is that about right?
Yeah, basically yes. It's one. So the first time can you hear me?
Sean,
can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. So the Spinbot is a way that I think the original batch took 4 weeks in tank to get the extraction from the cypress wood. By using a Spinbot, we got the idea of how to use a Spinbot or to design a Spinbot from Cigar City, and it's about agitation and extracting the flavors from the ingredients using the agitation. I think you could do it over 4 weeks, but like you'll start extracting more tannins as well as the good flavors from the wood. You'll start extracting flavors you don't want from the cacao. So by the agitation, we get the good flavors coming out. This is a picture of the Spinbot Big Bull. Those are the wooden spirals that we use. So by doing it in about 7 days, we get all the flavor extraction we want, but we don't get the unwanted things from it sitting on the ingredient for too long. So it's a really good vessel for us to do this beer, and we wouldn't be able to do it without it.
I like this video here that I'm about to show you because you can really see the saturation in the wood. You can really see how much that beer is getting into that wood. This is the very start of this process. So obviously those spirals just get completely saturated. But I think the flavour that we've got in the wood this year is really incredible that you touched on in the start.
Yeah, and I think it's something we really want to be present in this project. Cypress is such an interesting wood, and when we talk about Death Vine, we talk about Amberana, which is even more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, there's my wild beer glass as well.
Nice, nice.
There we go. Excellent. Should we move on to our second beer of the evening, which we are going to do the little guy, Caribbean chocolate cupcake. See if we can focus on that. There we go. So a little bit of background on this one. There was a couple of members of the team who were kicking around this idea of a lower ABV version, taking this sort of big project and making it into a lower ABV thing. And then Andy, who's on the comments, came up with this concept of the cupcake, which is fantastic. Toyed with the idea of calling it a session imperial stout, just to wind people up. But we didn't. We went for a session stout. We were never going to use that, really. Session is probably pushing it at 5.4. But there we go. So before we come to Sean to learn about this beer, there's I keep saying last year's, but it's not last year's, a couple of years ago. Panel, let's go to Nikki. What was your thoughts on this beer when you were trying it?
Well, firstly, I thought, I like my stouts to be like 10% or above, so I'm not going to like this one. But actually, it's very decadent. It's rich, and you got that chocolate, the coffee bitterness, a bit of vanilla frosting in there. I really enjoyed it in the end. Very nice, and you can have a session stout, it seems, and enjoy it.
Something you mentioned there, like the bigger stouts. I think you do get these. You get bigger flavors and bigger profiles and big stouts. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd be able to guess the ABV on this purely the mouthfeel. And I'm going to come to you about the mouthfeel of this in a moment. Roisin, what's your take on cupcake?
So Tim will testify that I kept calling it Christmas cupcake because it's got a Christmassy feel to it. So I still gave it 6 out of 10, but it's very, very chocolatey to my palate. And as I've said, that chocolate's not to my taste as a balm, and it tasted a little bit like that. But it's still, I've just poured it now. Still got a nice head on it. And it's got a good colour to it, and it's something that I would drink, but probably not in a session, personally.
Yeah, fair play. And Lisa?
So for me, it was the creaminess. It was like hot chocolate, when you have the hot chocolate and it's really creamy, and then the carbonation just kicks in at the back and just breaks it up and makes it more alive, especially coming from the Nitro to this. It's just like gooiness, but in a light way, like weekday temptation compared to the other ones. Yeah.
So, Sean, what are the challenges in taking this on as a project? It's like this set of beers has famously never been below 7.4, and then you've started adding things like bigger boils for these big mouthfeels. How do you start going about getting it down to this ABV?
Well, I think it's something we've looked at for a little while, and we went through a project where we try to make low ABV stouts, and Nitro was a key part of it, but without lactose in it. And lactose is a key part to getting some of the body in this beer. It's the creaminess, the smoothness. But I threw a lot of things that I've learned about trying to build body in beer at this. It was one of the ones that I found most challenging to really think about and how to build it, because it's not just about having a higher finishing Plato or gravity. It's actually about how those sugars all work together. And like longer boil, like a good amount of lactose, using some oats to get the mouthfeel. Looked at how we use the yeast, the fermentation profile, and this beer finish is incredibly high for a beer of this ABV. But I think one of the other things with imperial stouts is how the alcohol carries the other flavors out of like ingredients, or I think the alcohol has a massive sweetness from alcohol, especially in imperial stouts that we don't have here. So you had to create a sweetness in a different way. I think in this beer, the vanilla was something that I pushed more than we've done with many other beers with vanilla. It's hard to pick out vanilla. We use Madagascar vanilla in this, and it's really hard to pick out the vanilla on its own. from the amount that I put in, but it does a lot of things in the background. It works really well with lactose. But one of the other things we use in this, and it's just trying to get input from my brew team and people that work with us. And one of the guys, JD, who is working our packing line at the moment, but is a brewer, a really good brewer, and will be joining our brewing team in the future, has a malt that he really likes called chocolate rye. And it adds a milk chocolateness, and rye has a nice little bit of complexity to it. So we didn't put a lot of it in, but just having a little bit of the spice from the rye and this milky chocolateness coming in from there. I had to try to build in lots of different complexities. I had to think about the wood, because one of the things I said earlier with Caribbean chocolate cake is we're trying to dry these beers out, but you don't want to dry this one too much with the wood. So I had to kind of balance that. So there's a lot of unknowns when we went into this. I'm really happy with how it turned out, but I'd love to have another go at it.
Sean, I've got a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So instinctively, I put things in the fridge because I drink Heineken day to day. But one of the comments I made to Tim when I reviewed this was, not to my taste, still 6 out of 10, but I think it would be better room temperature. So for my own ignorance, what would you say? Should I put it in the fridge? Should I leave it room temperature? What would you suggest?
So I think you often see people drinking imperial stouts in a craft beer bar, and they're holding it like this to try warm it up. It's the one beer style that, cask ale we drink at 12, 14 degrees. Like, it's a warm. When you warm a beer up, it brings out a lot more flavor. Your taste buds can't taste below a certain. So your mates at Heineken have a product that they do super cold, and it's really refreshing when you drink a beer that cold, but there's not much flavor in it. It's crisp, it's clean, it's a well-made beer, but at that low temperature, you don't taste as many things. And this is the beauty of cask ale. At a warm-up, you're picking up all sorts of malt flavors, hop flavors that you wouldn't pick up if it was at 4 or 5 degrees. So I think stouts definitely warm up. It's a nice journey, because normally an imperial stout you drink slowly, and so it will warm up naturally as you drink it, and the flavor changes as it warms up. It's quite a. I also prefer my stouts as imperial stouts, as Nikki said. I think as you get to go on that journey of the flavor change as the temperature warms up. And I think with this one, it's again I think it's a low ABV beer that you could probably go on that journey with. I haven't tried warming it up in my hands, but we'll probably see how it goes now. And I think the vanilla will come out more, and it's, but definitely room temperature stouts is the way to go.
I'm a big fan of that. A cold imperial stout or a cold stout, because I really love that initial hit of refreshingness. I just prefer cold beers. But then there is something really nice about just kind of spending an evening just sipping a big stout. I'm nearly 40, so I'll definitely spend a whole evening just sipping one big stout, and then just letting it warm up, and you do get those more flavors, more akin to sort of cask beer, etc. While it's on the screen, just to answer Adrian's question there, has CCC ever been put in cask? Yeah, we've done quite a lot of casks of CCC over the years. If you had the booklet that came with it, there's a funny photo in there. This is before my time at Siren. I've been with Siren for about 5.5 years, but this is a whole Christmas cake being smashed into the top of a cask, which is when we used to do things like that. But yeah, there are some casks of the CCC beers out there, and there's a very special cask being poured at the Christmas party, the Christmas market, Christmas fair at the Tap Yard on September 2nd. So do come along to that.
Yeah, I think Adrian said he lives near the Georgian Dragon, so he must live fairly near the brewery. So
exactly, yeah. And do go to the Georgian Dragon as well. Great pub in Swallowfield. Good owners. So Lisa, you came to the UK and you fell in love with bitters, so you must be a bit of a cask fan.
Oh, I love cask.
How is stout for you? Do you prefer the sort of more cask warmer?
It depends when I'm drinking it. So in the summer, I probably prefer it a bit cooler, because you get this, like I said, the refreshingness of it. And now probably a bit warmer. I actually, when I first tried them, I had it cooler and let it warm up over the evening, which worked really well because all, like you say, the flavors just pop once it warms up. So with that one, I found that when you first open it, a bit cooler, it had this real freshness. And it just came off the canning line, I believe, when we got it. And it's just like, oh, this is so good. And then it warmed up and it's like, it's a tiny beer, but it's got so much personality with its 5.5%, you know, it's just like, wow. So it depends, to answer the question.
When you guys got those beers, they were probably still cold from the canning line, to be fair. They were literally like taken off and put into boxes. So Sean, with the you mentioned a lot about the sort of changing flavors and stuff, and obviously you mentioned the chocolate rye in this, and obviously vanilla, and obviously the chocolate that goes into it, the cacao nibs. What for you is the most important part of this recipe that's doing the most heavy lifting? Because we call it the cupcake to get that vanilla frosting element, but there's so many different flavors that are appearing, and I think someone in the comments actually said it was kind of like cold-blooded Christmas. What's for you as the brewer and for you as the guy who came up with this? What's doing the heavy lifting, like recipe-wise?
I think it's definitely in this one. I think the vanilla, we put 3 kgs of vanilla beans. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is. We blend them now, which is a great thing we learned at. We used to butterfly cut every single one, which took hours, and actually just blending them up gives you a really good extraction. I think that does a lot of work in the background on this beer. I think it's what we did in the brew house as well, like all the little things, the longer boil, which you wouldn't normally do with a beer this low. I changed the grist to water ratio, so the grist being all the malt to the water to try to thicken the mash a bit. We did a shorter mash rest. We did almost every trick that I kind of can think of to try build body in a beer, because I didn't want to just do a higher mash temperature and that's it. We put in lactose. I think we got a bit of maltodextrin in this as well. Yes, vanilla is very expensive, but there was a deal on the premium vanilla pods, which are still pretty expensive. And I think the other thing that really worked on this one is the spin bot. And the way we run the spin bot as well is we taste it every day. First thing when we get in, one of the last things we do, depending on what we thought from the morning, 3 or 4 of us will taste it. We'll talk through what you think of it. And we learned a little trick from Cigar City is when you taste the spin bot and you think it tastes perfect, you let it spin for another 24 hours just to over extract. So when we send the beer through the centrifuge, you get it ready, we carbonate it. Any flavor that you lose through those processes, it brings it back to where it is. We found around 24 hours is the way to do it for that. So it's a really good little trick that Cigar City taught us, and we use it. But it was an interesting one. I think alcohol, because you spin these after fermentation, helps with extraction of flavors. And we saw slightly slower extraction with this beer. I think the alcohol being lower probably made a difference there. So yeah, it was a real challenge, this one, to get it right. And it's turned out pretty good, I think.
It fits in with the set really well. And I don't think there's anything. If you'd have told me that was 7.4%, I'd believe you. I wouldn't have any reason to doubt, because I think it's got the mouthfeel, it's got the flavour. It's a really easily drinking stout.
Yeah, and I think if you want it to be a 12% stout and you try to drink it like that, you can obviously pick things in it that aren't there. But if you actually just enjoy it for what it is, I think it's turned out really well.
Amen. And because Sean said enjoy it for what it is, it's time for another questions with Darren.
So cupcake, obviously a great food pairing for that would be a cupcake. Personally, I love venison to go with a stout, and I think that would work really, really well with this version. Love to know your ideas, how you would pair cupcake.
There you go. All right. So where are we going for pairings with beer like this? Roisin, what are you pairing with a beer like this? Do you enjoy sort of food and beer? Is that how you drink?
Yeah, it's how I drink normally, and you know, a special occasion when you've got friends about, you tend to buy in special beers and have a go, and something they might not normally drink themselves. But I'd be amiss with a name like Roisin, not to say that I would enjoy it with a nice pie, chicken and mushroom, Guinness and steak pie, nice hearty meal to go with a nice stout. But yeah, as you know, as we're talking as well, this is, like you say, the taste changes. I think I sent my review after 3 sips and went, yeah, okay, this is not, but yeah, so hearty meal, hearty stout. That's what I will say.
The key with beer and food pairing is like for like as well, not letting something overpower. So I don't think you're going to have a beer like this with some delicate fish, because it's just going to crash it away.
Nice sea bass, maybe. Who knows?
Exactly. It wouldn't work. You either want to sort of contrast or cut through, but complement definitely. And it's a big beer. All of these are big beers, so you're going to need big flavors. So like a big meaty pie is a great thing. Like as Darren said as well with the venison. Nikki, you're a brewer. You must have some good food pairing advice, or is it just...
I'm braver with my beers than I am with my food, that's for sure.
Scampi fries?
Oh no, not fish. I'd probably go for a nice cheese board, blue cheese, good cheddar, or some peanuts, chalky pretzels, things like that, snacky bits.
Something that we discovered doing a cheese pairing was, and we never thought it would work, but Broken Dream, our stout with blue cheese. So I really, really want to try cupcake, because the sweetness of cupcake with the blue cheese, I think, would be an amazing combo. Adrian Kirk agrees there. Blue cheese. Lisa, what about you? Is there any sort of German snacking up your sleeve?
Yeah, I would have said like cured meats, like your salamis, or even cooked ham. As a child, I always had cooked ham and like a hazelnut chocolate spread together, because of the saltiness and the chocolate, it kind of works. So anything salty, I think, would work. But I think a rum and raisin vanilla ice cream would go really well as well.
Yeah, like sweet with sweet. I quite like the idea of that. We'll get on to salt with these beers shortly. I quite like the idea of sort of German, those snapping sausages that you have, and like really pickly mustard, some sauerkraut. Yeah. Maybe I just like the idea of that in general. But Sean, what about you? Any South African snacks up your sleeve?
Yeah, with some biltong.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
No. Well, actually, yeah, probably work. But I had 2 things. One has been said. I thought this would make a great kind of Coke float with a Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Wow.
Which I think is probably a bit... I'm probably a bit too old for that. Another thing that I think, I haven't tried this, and I only thought about this now, is I really would like to blend this with Death by CCC and pair it with that for half and half.
Okay. I'm going to leave some here, and we're going to try that later.
Yeah, I think that could be a fun little thing to see what it does.
That's why I use different glasses for every drink, so I know which one's which. And we'll try some blending. So Sean, any other comments on this beer at all?
I think like we learned a lot from this one, and I think we'll take it forward and try use it in the future. I still think the thing that's missing from this is that alcohol sweetness and to make it taste like a bigger beer, or trick people to think it's bigger, which is not necessarily the point of this. But I think looking at that and looking at what can we put in there to create those complexities that bigger stouts have. But I'm very happy with it for this version.
Do you reckon you could barrel age that?
Yeah, I think you can barrel age anything, but I think it would be interesting. I think normally we would add all the adjuncts, the cacao and the wood, after barrel aging. So maybe this would be it would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know. The alcohol normally helps beers and barrel, but it'll be an interesting one.
When I said, do you reckon you could? It wasn't like a, do you think it would work? It was a, can you do it, please? Because I quite like the idea of this lower ABV barrel aged stout, even though it would pick up some ABV, obviously. But I think it'd be a nice thing.
I think it's something we can look into.
Amen. All right, should we try our third beer?
Yeah.
We are moving on with these, but that's fine. We've got a lot of time to talk. Remember, get your questions in. Anything you want to ask Sean about anything, including beard healthcare. Next one we are drinking the salted cherry, which there we go. Caribbean salted cherry chocolate cake. So every year we do different variants. We've had quite a few different variants now. I believe this one was pitched by Darren. Is that correct, Sean?
Yes. It was a pitch from him, and then he forgot he had pitched it and thought we pitched it to him. It was an idea. We just threw a bunch of ideas out in a meeting, and I think it stuck on everyone's list. So we were like, we've got to do this one at some point. And then when we came back to it, it was again up high on the list. So we went for it.
First thing I want to ask everyone, I've seen Nikki going for a couple of sips there, or are you just sniffing? But I just really want to ask about the aroma that everyone's getting. Like, does anyone get cherry? Also, does anyone think that there's any red on the head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes to both.
Yes to both. There you go.
Yeah, so there's definitely cherry there.
Yeah.
And there is this like reddish tint, I think, to it. So it screams cherry.
Nice. I wasn't sure about the reddish tint. Sean mentioned it, and I wasn't sure, but I think you're probably right. Yeah. Sean, on the cherry note, then tell us about the cherries that have gone into this.
So there's a cherry that we've used before called Montmorency. So we wanted to use that. It's a good flavor in that cherry, and then we also use it was a blend of Montmorency, Morello, and Balaton. I don't know that much about cherries, like I sound like I do now, but just speaking to some of our suppliers.
Like Italy's midfield. Those cherries sound like Italy's midfield, to be fair.
Yeah, and speaking to our supplier, like we knew we wanted to use Montmorency, and they came with a blend that they could get for us. There was that. It was a cherry concentrate. It was, when we added it to the tank, it really looked like it was gonna have a red tinge to the foam or the head. And I thought that would have been really cool if we did that. I did some lab work on all these beers to just our normal procedure. And when we filter the beer through a little filter that can catch any microorganisms if there are any, and then we plate that and see if anything grows. And nothing grew in these, but the filter that it went through ended up being just red. All the other ones were brown. So there is definitely color in there. And it would have been awesome if the foam came out a nice bright maroon red, but not this year.
Yeah, it's definitely there. It is definitely there, but it's subtle, but it's definitely there. So panel, let's hear your thoughts on this one. Nikki, what did you think of the cherry?
Originally, I wasn't sure on this one. I found it quite acidic.
Yeah.
But now, I think I like it actually more. I mean, you get that milk chocolate, and then it's like tart cherry, almost like cherry skin. It's very natural, and then a salty kick on the finish. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying it more. I think maybe it's too cold last time. But it's, yeah. You've got to get it at the right temperature.
I think I'm in a very similar boat to you. I've had quite a few of these now as a taster, sort of, over time in the office. and it's kind of changed for me every time. And
it's growing.
You kind of buy a can of this and you taste it and you go, yeah, I like it, or I don't like it. It really is developing a lot, and it probably is developing with the warmth as well.
Yeah,
I think the cherries, they've just sort of, I don't know whether it's more balanced, but they're just really sitting really nicely.
Yeah, they are.
Roisin, were you a fan of this one up front? Do you like it now?
Yeah, so I'm a tenner girl, so I was a 9 out of 10 for this. But like Nikki says, the more I drink it, the more. So I'm going to do a very niche reference here. It's like the Witches of Eastwick. Have another cherry. I'm like saying, yeah, have some more, have some more. Yeah, it's delicious. Cherry's one of my favourite flavours, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Sorry, Nikki, again, millionaire probably knocked out here. The more I drink it, it's a winner for me.
Lisa, what about you? You a cherry fan?
I am. And I was a bit worried about it because when I thought cherry, I hope it doesn't go too far in, the sickly sweet creek styles you get. And then I thought, actually, no, it's just this rolling wave of acidity and then this like intense chocolate. It just goes over and over. And then the salt just lifts it. It's just, I can only describe it as a rolling wave of different flavors that play cat and mouse with each other. And it just marries together in this like Black Forest Gâteau. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So a couple of points there, I think, that I want Sean to comment on. One is the Black Forest Gâteau, because I want to know if that was an influence on you as a brewer getting to it. But first, let's talk about the salt. Tez has commented here, sweeten a little tart. We'll wait for the salted bits to come through. And Lisa, you've kind of said about this like layer where the salt hits. I think people experience salt in different ways. So, Sean, tell us about the salt that you've used and what the feeling was there, and what you as a brewer are hoping for it to bring to the table.
So, for water treatment in brewing, which is really important, one of the main ones we use is sodium chloride, which is salt. And sodium chloride or salt is a real interesting ingredient because small amounts of it will taste sweet before it tastes salty, and then as you put more in, it becomes salty. Or so I think it works really well on chocolate. It works. Salt is incredible with cooking. It's such a game changer to a recipe to get that right. So with this, like if we could get little time capsules that would like pop in your mouth, like it would be great if we could do that, but that wasn't possible. So we had to layer in the salt, and it was trying to get a bit of sweetness from the salt, but also have that saltiness in it. And it works. It's hard because there's a lot of noise in this beer. You got cherries, you got cacao, got a lot of cacao in this. And one thing I found is certain ingredients get masked by cacao, or cacao masks them. And I think like coffee and cacao don't often work together. Smoked malt and cacao don't work together. And I think cherries overpower the cacao, and we needed the salt to kind of bring back in there. And I think the more you drink this, the more you'll find. I think it's quite interesting to hear two of you saying that it wasn't necessarily your favorite one to start, and then it's kind of grown on you. And I think that's the beauty of salt, how it will kind of find its way in. And ideally, it would be like little pops of salt as you're drinking it. But I think it comes and goes. It might come as sweetness, and then you get the acidity. And it is a balance of saltiness and acidity and the sweetness that we've got. And it's an interesting one. I think being called salted cherry, I really wanted the cherries to be at the forefront, make sure you could taste them.
It's an interesting one when you mention things like that. And I've having run the social media for Siren for 5.5 years, I noticed that when we put something on a label, or particularly in a beer description, and if people don't immediately taste it, then you hear about it or you see it on Untapped. Nikki, you've probably experienced this as well in some of your new beers. And I often say it's like celery in a ragu, or in a bolognese. You're not saying, oh, it's a celery bolognese, but it has celery in that's thingy. And people, you wouldn't taste a ragu and go, I can't taste the celery, but that celery's done something. It's an aromat. And I think the salt in this is kind of like that. Would you agree, Sean, where you're not kind of meant to be going, oh, it's salty, but the salt is is lifting the cherry and it's lifting the chocolates and things like that.
Yeah. So we buy salt in as stuff we use in our water treatment, and we're just looking for the chlorides and the calcium and the not calcium in this, but the sodium to balance out in our water treatment. This we went with like sea salt. I love using pink Himalayan sea salt in cooking, so I went with that. There were some other minerals in there, and I thought I would just play around within this beer a little bit. And it changes, like that salt changed food for me, like compared to normal salt. Like I just think it brings out more flavor. So we went with that, and I think it's a real interesting. It's like spicing a beer. It's really interesting how it works. And the taste trials we did were, it was also interesting because we had like a few of us going, oh, that's too much, and then some other ones going, no, I think it's not enough. And then we like played around. And the more we tasted, the more we started finding what it did to the beer. And by the end, we all agreed on the dose rate that we wanted. But just by talking through it, it's an interesting ingredient to add. And then also with this one, we added a post fermentation where all our water treatment salt additions are done mainly in the brew house.
Yeah.
So we actually had the finished beer with the cherries in, playing around with the salt addition we wanted to add.
Cool. And seeing as Sean said, salt addition we wanted to add, it's time for another questions with Darren.
So salted cherry is this year's variant for our Caribbean chocolate cake series. I think one of my favourites is the white chocolate pancake stack. We'd love to get some inspiration from you. What would you love to see as a variant for the following years?
What would you love to see as a variant for the following years? I couldn't have said it better myself, Darren. So yeah, get your comments in on what you want to see next year. We might genuinely take some influence on this. I was driving home. I'm going to tell you this because it's my answer now, Sean. I'm obsessed with oldies compliments. I have to buy like a ton of them and always have them going. And I've got to the point when I'm driving where I get in my car and about 3 minutes after starting driving, I get real gack mouth because I'm so obsessed with eating these damn mints. So I want a Caribbean chocolate spearmint cake. So there is my answer for the table. But Nikki, what do you think would make a good variant for this?
I'm probably going to be in the minority here, but I want a pineapple upside down cake.
Yes, please.
Wow.
The best that I've ever had was Other Half of Forager. It was a pineapple headband, it was called. And it's pineapple, marshmallow, vanilla and coconut. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever had.
Sean, are you writing it down?
Brew with pineapple. A pineapple stout, please.
Pineapple. Sean, have you ever brewed with pineapple or
we played around with it.
I should add in a stout because we've done several pineapple IPAs, but in a stout. Interesting. I like the idea. Lisa, what about you?
I've got a few actually. So rhubarb and custard, I think that would work really well, like tart and vanilla. And a beetroot one, controversial maybe, but I think it would work. You've got the earthiness, and it might give you the red head.
Yeah, that's the red head you have to just add some beetroot.
And my favorite would be like a herbal one. So I had this really nice impy stout with basil, and it just worked so well. So I'm sure Siren can do something like that.
Oh, I'm loving it. Roisin, what do you reckon?
I've been like sort of like stalking the comments, and someone put peanut butter, and I was as soon as you asked that question, I was like, yeah. So Reese's Pieces and the Donnies, aren't they? Everyone loves a bit of Reese's Pieces, unless you're allergic to nuts, of course. And please do not eat any. But a little bit of peanut in that would be delicious, and also like chocolate orange, like that vibe would be on point. I think that's I like the idea of the pineapple as well, Nikki, but the coconut, not for me. It will turn into a bit of like a Malibu sort of night out when you're 17 in a park. Yeah, that's my vibe. That's what I'm going for.
Love it.
Nice.
In the comments, we've got a vote for mint, although peppermint, spearmint, it's the ultimate showdown. Adrian, ginger cake, we have done that. Caribbean chocolate ginger cake, we did that a few years ago. I think that was the last variant in bottles we did that. Cinnamon swirl variant is basically death by, surely. Parkin, we've recently done a Parkin beer, is that right, Sean? Honestly, after 10 years of the absolute madness that comes out of the brew house, we're running out.
Yeah. We haven't quite got to Parkin yet, but we did a oat wine that we were going to go Parkin, but didn't.
That was it. Yep, that was it. So Parkin's getting some love here. Red velvet cake. There would be a red as well. You could put some beetroot in that. Treacle toffee. That is the
Banana.
absolute.
If we had a banana stout.
Banana stout. Yep. I'm sure JD would be in for that one. After 8 stout, mint. See, here we go. Everyone's loving the mint. What do you think of a mint beer, Sean? Have you ever brewed with mint?
No, it's something I've looked at a couple of times and we've never gone with it. But yeah, trying to get mint but stay away from menthol kind of and those kind of chloramine kind of flavors is a tough one.
Andy's commented here, unfortunately, if you like cinnamon, you have to fight Darren. And we'll explain that comment when we start talking about Amberana, I think.
Yeah.
Dark chocolate and Frangelica. I don't know if that's a film name from the 80s or recommendation. Tonka beans. So now we're kind of on to last year's beers again. Sticky toffee pudding, jalapenos. We did mole last year. These are some great recommendations. Chili cake. We did the mole last year. Thai banana. You're getting a lot of ideas here, Sean. Are you taking notes?
If we're just shouting out suggestions, has anybody ever had ready salted crisps and chocolate? If you can make something ready salted, that would be perfect. With a hint of chocolate.
Yeah. Sean, does that work? It's like a potato stout.
We can try.
We can try.
Again, it would be a miss if, with a name like Roisin, if I didn't mention potatoes at least once every 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. So, interesting point here. Not coconut, devil's food. Disagree, love coconut personally. All of these beers have Sabro in as a hop, and I largely get coconut from Sabro. Not everyone does. One of the things that people have been picking up from CCC, and particularly Death by that we'll get onto, is coconut, Sean. No coconut in these beers, of course. But how about a coconut variant?
Yeah, I think so. I think Steve's mentioned Thai banana. There's a banana ingredient I'm interested in using at some point, which I think could fit into this potentially. I pitched red velvet cake this year. Didn't get through, but I like the idea of that. And then I also think we could push the cacao further than we've ever done and do a triple chocolate cake at some point.
Yeah, triple chocolate. Okay. So on the panel here, who's up for triple chocolate?
Oh yeah.
Me.
Well, Roisin, who doesn't like chocolate and has a lactose intolerant, you're not up for triple chocolate. Everyone else is though. Yeah, triple chocolate sounds good. So Sean, what's your dream here? Where would you like to see this series be taken?
I really enjoyed the challenge with the white stout and what we did with that, and as well, I think the red velvet cake could be a fun thing to play around with. Yeah, I don't know. I think we've got loads of ideas to play with and what we can do, It's kind of something that I hope just keeps growing. Maybe we could do more than one variant. Someone was talking about barrel aged variant. I think that's something quite exciting as well to look at. I think we can play around with lots of things.
We have been asked if barrel aged variant is on the cards. We used to do 4 beers, and one of them was always the barrel aged CCC. Last year we were, for the first time, or not last year, the year before, we decided not to do it as one of the 4 and then to release its very own sort of bottle version. And that was essentially that we weren't sort of pushing it for one of these beers or putting it in a can. We were giving it the time and the love it needed in barrels, and also then putting it in a wax sealed 375ml bottle. And that will be back. CCC is in barrels, and that will be back at some point. I saw the amazing beer writer David Jesadason picked up a barrel-aged CCC today from somewhere, and he said he's using it for his Christmas dinner, like to drink with his Christmas dinner. So perfect. That's what you want. We'll talk about barrel-aged in a moment, though. Black Forest Gatto. I mean, we're literally drinking the salted cherry right now. If that's not Black Forest Gatto, then I don't know what is. There we go. Any other thoughts on this beer, Sean?
No, I think it's we said everything about it already. I think it was a fun challenge to balance flavors in it and ingredients, and that's what I enjoyed about brewing this one.
Absolutely. All right. So before we get to our next beer, I want to introduce Willie, which sounds weird when you're on a live YouTube. I'm well aware, but I'm talking about Willie Harcourt-Coos, who runs the amazing Willie's Cacao, which is the cacao we use in these beers. Let me just find a photo of how we get the cacao, because I think it's very interesting. Here we go. This is how we get this cacao in these huge bags, which is then scooped into smaller bags and then put into the spin bot by Sean and the lovely Hayley in our brew house. So let's hear from Willie, who's going to introduce himself. Here we go.
He's founder of Willie's Cacao, an artisan chocolate company, founded in Venezuela 30 years ago. In the cloud forests of Choroní, in the Henry Pittier National Park. What is it about chocolate? Well, after 30 years of farming, it's in my veins. I live and breathe chocolate, and that brings me to, the Caribbean chocolate cake and the nibs that are used in it. And ultimately, they're a Rio Caribe nib with a coffee nutty note. It's my favorite drive in Venezuela. 12 hours from Caracas on the Paria Peninsula, where you have the sleepy town of Rio Caribe steeping back to the mountains. And that's it, the most beautiful nibs in the world. Viva Cacao!
Yay!
Really is amazing. We had him on live a couple of years ago, and he was just telling us some incredible chocolate stories. He is an absolute legend of the game. There is no one in the world more passionate about the product they sell than Willie.
Yeah, he's great. One thing we did this year I made a choice on this is we used to blend the cacao nibs with cacao husks, which is the outer things, the outer casing of the nibs that is actually a byproduct of chocolate making. So it was a nice product to get, and we had this idea that nibs gave us rich dark chocolate and the husk gave us milk chocolate. And through the years I think I've grown skeptical of it, and I wanted to go this year with just the nibs. I've eaten both of the ingredients, tasted them, tried them, and I think we're getting a woody character from the husk, which I wanted to let the cypress wood carry that wood character. So I removed them this year, and we've just gone with nibs, and it was off the back of CCC last year, where the brewer Doug from Cycle was saying he doesn't use the husk anymore, he just used nibs. So it was off the back of that we went for this.
Let me just play you another video from Willie talking about the chocolate we've used.
I'm supplying to Siren are made from a Rio Caribe bean, which has been lightly roasted to protect all those beautiful nutty coffee flavor notes. It's my favorite drive in Venezuela. It's about 12 hours across Venezuela to the Paria Peninsula, where the sleepy village of Rio Caribe, the mountains steep up behind where the cacao is grown, you know. And what can I say? They are the most incredible beans ever.
Who'd pay for a live talk with Willie? Because I would. I'd pay endless amounts of money just to watch that man talk for like 2 hours about chocolate. It'd be absolutely amazing.
I think he
Just
could tell
follow him
me what I
around.
was buying, and I would be okay with it.
Yeah. You'd be eating so much chocolate, you'd be there coughing up. Okay, there's one more video because I've said video to show you of Willie. So let me just find that one. 1 sec. Couldn't upload it beforehand, so here we go. Let's see if this plays.
So what do you think my favourite use for chocolate is? Well, should we say cacao, which is the base of all chocolate?
What do we think Willie's favourite use of chocolate is? The man most passionate about chocolate. Nikki, what do you think Willie's favourite use of chocolate is?
Cocoa butter.
Cocoa butter?
Yeah.
For what sense? On the body or on the
Body.
toast?
Yeah.
On the body. Okay. Roisin?
I think my answer might be censored, so I'll pass.
Wise. Okay. Lisa?
I quite like it in smoothies, so I'd go with smoothies.
Smoothies. All right. Okay. Anyone else want to get a comment in at watching on? Then let us know, and we'll go back to Willie's answer in a moment. But Sean, I think you know what Willie's favourite use of chocolate is, and it's not X-rated.
I haven't actually seen the answer. I haven't seen his answer, but can I put my guess in?
Yeah.
Putting it on his eggs every morning for breakfast.
All right. Okay.
I'm going to change my answer. Can I have like grated over a cappuccino in the morning?
Yep, you can.
Okay, thank you.
You can. We'll get back to Willie's answer later on.
Nice. I do enjoy seeing Willie talk every year.
Oh, he's amazing. He is.
I've spoken to him on the phone a few times, and he is literally that energetic in life, just on the phone. He's great. And
he really is.
A shout out to his chocolate products. They are incredible.
They are incredible. And if you want to buy them, do go to williescacao.com. That's WILLIESCACAO.com, williescacao.com. There's loads of really great Christmas gifts and all his truffles and hampers and all those sorts of things there. If you were lucky enough before we sold out on the web shop to get the deluxe box or the Chocoholics Lovers box, I think we called it this year, which was double the amount of cans and some Willie's chocolate. Really great stuff. He also does hot chocolate, which is incredible. Just everything from Willie's is fantastic. It's a really good Christmas present for your mum as well, because it's kind of like the high end of chocolate. So do get on it. So because we're talking about chocolate, let's talk about our last beer of the evening, which we can slowly sip away on, which of course is Death by CCC. Now, in previous years, this has always been called Death by Caribbean Chocolate Cake. And it's not called Death by Caribbean Chocolate Cake this year. And I am fighting a battle on Untapped to try and get people's reviews in the correct place. This beer is called Death by CCC. And it's called that. You'll notice the three fonts on the front. That relates to Candor, Charm, and Curiosity, which was our subterfuge beers last year, where we announced this range of beers and then we did something completely different. Sean, why did we do that last year? Why did we stop brewing for a year? Why did we make Candor, Charm, and Curiosity?
I think we knew it was our 10-year anniversary coming up, and we wanted to give CCC a Caribbean chocolate cake a break, but wanted to do something big and wanted to explore stouts in a different way that we haven't done before. And we got this idea of brewing with some of the best stout brewers in the world, one from a different place in the world. We wanted to use a different ingredient with each of them. And it just kind of grew as this idea, and we didn't really know what to call it for so long that we just Andy, who I know Andy's listening, but I want to give a shout out to him for just the branding on the cans this year is amazing. And then I think I love the touch that he's called it Death by CCC, because that project for me was probably one of the hardest projects I've ever done, just from how to think about. We brewed some pretty ridiculous stouts, high, like 42.6 Plato was the starting gravity of one of them, which is really, really crazy. And that ended up finishing at probably what Death by CCC starts at. So the sweetness, it was just a crazy beer, which we did with, obviously with Omnipollo, who do this normally. But one of the other great things about that project was we had some trouble with fermentation because these beers are really high in sugar concentration. The yeast was struggling with it. And we just started reaching out to people we knew, people that had brewed Omnipollo beers before. And everyone was like, oh, you got that problem. We had that a few years ago. This is how you solve it. And like just gave us advice. And it was such a great project, from sharing knowledge with about 5 or 6 brewers who I really, really respect and never thought we'd get to work with. And just it was amazing. And I think we didn't really know that that's what we were trying to get out of it, but it changed the way we look at stouts, I think, massively. And was an incredibly fun project and incredibly challenging, with such high reward that it was so worth it.
Yeah,
so, I think we didn't know we were going to get that out of it, but we totally did.
Yeah, we got a lot of great stuff out of this. And like from that series of beers, I think my favorite thing personally that I got out of it was when you sent me your videos of you in the brewery overnight. That was my personal favorite thing. But
I still can't watch the mix you made of that.
I think the best thing about that, Sean, was the fact that you sent me like 16 different video clips, and I was like, oh, he's filmed stuff all night. And then when I watched them through, it was like 6 takes of the same thing. And then that was it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, there's nothing to do in the brewery on your own while the kettle's just boiling. And the noises you hear in the middle of the night is pretty interesting.
And the ghosts.
Yeah.
Also, a big shout out to Will from Studio Par, who designs all of our cans, all of our flagship range, stuff like that. These printed cans for this year, we wanted to go with something a bit more sort of tactile. And they're really, really lovely. And the design and the change up the Will's done is fantastic. I think this is possibly the best series of these beers that we've done. And I think this really brings it to life as well. So some really lovely comments. I haven't actually got into this yet. So let's all get stuck in. And while I'm having a drink, you tell me what you think about it. So Nikki, tell me what you think about this, the big boy of the series.
This is my kind of stout. This is beautiful, rich. It's got warming spiciness about it. It's just well balanced. But it's easy drinking as well. Maybe that's just me, but
what do you find easy drinking about this for a 10% stout? Because there's a lot of different complex flavors going on. Is that what you're sort of comfortable with?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and it's not, the booze doesn't really smack you. You know, it's well balanced. If you just sort of sip on it, it's just lovely. Beautiful.
Yeah. Amen. Lisa, what about you?
So when I had this, I think I wrote in my review that it's a stout that takes you by the hand and just walks you through it, and you just submit to it, because it's just, there's so much like ginger in there, and then these baking spices that just kind of lull you into this. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna, whatever you do, I'm staying with a stout. It's just
yeah,
beautiful.
Roisin?
Apologies, because the cough has come. But yeah, exactly what Nikki said. I think that when I sent my review to you, I described it as complex. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was I was tasting, but it was a variety of things going down my throat, basically. Oi, oi. It's very sorry. It's very, very tasty, and it was top 2. Now I've changed my mind, and it's not cold. So yeah, for me, a learning curve is not put instantly everything in the fridge. Let it sit. But yeah, very tasty and complex.
Absolutely. I think there's so much going on in here. Lisa, you mentioned ginger. Roisin saying very tasty and complex. Because you said that, it's time for another question to Darren.
Death by CCC. Some interesting flavour notes come out of that. The Amberana adds so much complexity. Love to know what you're getting as flavour notes from that beer.
So in the comments, let us know what you're finding from here, because I've not heard anyone say ginger yet. Sean, I don't know if that's something that's new to you, but I absolutely love that when I hear someone give me a note that they're finding that no one else has, because I think that's so indicative of how we all enjoy food and drink, all in different, unique ways, and it's great. Sean, ginger, have you ever sort of experienced that one with this?
I think like Amberana is such a complex. It's a wood that smells like the smell you're getting. I think what's so interesting about it is everyone picks up something different from it, and it makes it such an interesting ingredient for us, because you'll get people that have different flavors. And for me, it's big tonka, and that's the easy one for people. But like finding ginger, if you go, one of my brewers says it smells like incense. That's the word, and you can get that, and you can look for it. And I think it's great because it's so complex that if you look for something someone tells you might be in there, you might find it. And it's a great ingredient. It's something this beer is being built around now. And I think every year I reduce the amount of Amberana we put in this beer, and it still just pumps through all the other ingredients. It's such an interesting ingredient. We're really lucky to have access to getting some of it. And do you remember seeing in the video the spirals, Tim? If you can bring up the picture of the spiral. One of the reasons we use spirals, so they cut like that, so you create a bigger surface area, so you get flavor extraction all the way through the wood. You don't have to have just like a rod of wood that you can't get anything from the inside. So these spirals are just such great flavor extraction things. It's such a great product. And the Amberana every year, bring it down a little bit, bring it down. I'm like, I never wanted to not be present, but it's just so powerful. But it works so well with wood and vanilla. We picked up like people talking about coconut, and I think those flavors all coming together brings a coconut vibe. And the smoothness of this beer this year, I think, is great. And that it's just how different people will interpret the flavors in this beer. I love about it. I think it's such an interesting beer, and I've talked with Andy about this. I think this is the best beer we produce, because we produce it every single year, and it's great every single year. I think I will often find something that I want to fix in a beer or change. And obviously talking about reducing the Amberana, but like every year I'm just so happy with this beer.
So this year, in the change from last year, is half the Amberana but double the chocolate.
It's not quite half. I'm not brave enough to take out half the Amberana.
How much did Darren want you to take out?
I think we've got this internal joke now that we don't want Amberana in anything anymore, because it's so powerful. But I'm still an advocate for it. I'll push it when we need it. But I think we've done a beer before. It was a brown ale. We put 5 spirals in the spin batch. It wasn't a full batch, but you could taste the amber on it. It was incredible. Like you could smell it. Like it's such a great product. But I think like what I really love about this beer is the balance and the drinkability for a 10% stout is just incredible. The chocolate's rich. So we're always looking to make tweaks and evolve our beers if we brew them every year. And like we took a lot of the things we learned from the CCC project. So we did a 6-hour boil instead of a 3-hour boil on this. You know, going from, I think in CCC we did a 12-hour boil and 22-hour boil. Both of those are more than we need. That was great for that project. But 6 hours, I think, is a nice little number for us to brew these with. I also looked at a way to do a single mash with this instead of a double mash, just to get like lots of body left in it. We can do double mashes for big stouts like this, but we did the volume that we needed. We could do a really big thick mash and get it out of this, and I think it helped. It's just, we use some sugars to help get to the ABV. We looked at fermentation in a much. We added sugar during fermentation, which is what we learned as well, which allows a much smoother fermentation. It's just a great beer, I think.
Amen.
I'm very proud of.
Good, and you should be. It's I think it's a really unique beer as well, and I think it's almost like signature Siren now as well, isn't it? And it's a great beer. Xmas spices, Christmas spices. I think there's absolutely a thing going on with that as well. That sort of mulled spices as well. Roisin, when you kept saying Caribbean Christmas cake, I thought you meant this one at first because of those sort of Christmassy spices. There's another beer that you produce, Sean, called Origin Story, which has got 20 different malts, and we've spoken before about how with those 20 different malts and no adjuncts, the aim isn't for one particular thing, but when you drink it, you might get chocolate, you might get coffee, you might get toffee, you might get all these different things at different times throughout that beer, and that's fine. I genuinely find this to be quite similar, where you get a bit of spice, you get a bit of dark fruit, you get a bit of sort of dried fruit, you get a bit of spice again, you get a bit of chocolate. It's a real journey of flavor, and I absolutely love that. Yeah,
it is, and I think it's a great thing to finish off like a Caribbean chocolate tasting with. I think if you did this early on, the flavors are just so much more powerful in this. They will dominate over the other beers. It's always the one to end on, in my opinion. I used to hate the word complex as a beer descriptor, and I've grown to actually accept it. I used to think, oh, you just say complex because you can't describe what the flavors are. But I think actually the complexity of this is so interesting that you find a different flavor almost every time you have a sip or drink it. And complex is a great word for it. So I've completely swung around that through the years. But I think it's great. It is a very complex beer, and you got lots of things going on. And I think every time I had it the other night, and all I got was cacao. And I was like, "Where's the Amberona gone?" And then towards the end, maybe because it warmed up, the sun was Amberona. That's all I get again. So it's interesting.
What are the more out there flavor notes that anyone's finding in this? Is anyone brave enough to give me a really out there note? I mean, apart from ginger, which now everyone agrees with, by the way.
I've got tobacco and
sweet tobacco. That's what I was going to say.
Treacle.
Yeah.
Leather.
I get quite a marzipan-y thing going on. That's not very out there, but I think it's out there. Leg of lamb
would go really well, actually.
Yeah.
Treacle's a good one, I think.
Yeah, delicious. Sean, what are the quantities to mix for Cupcake and Death by? 50-50?
If you do the maths to make it a 7.4% and see if it tastes just like
Well, it's
the original.
5.4 and 10%. So let's say 50-50.
50-50 it is.
All right.
I forgot we're doing this.
Well, I am. I feel like I need to stir it, and this might be rude, but I'm going in.
Oh, Tim.
No, sorry. Okay. Oh, what have you done, Sean? That's great. That's in the sweet spot. This, I tell you what, when we did the Calypso variants earlier in the year, and we did the 2 cocktails, the Negroni, which is why I will show you something in a moment relating to Darren, and what the other cocktail?
Whiskey sour.
Whiskey sour. So yeah, I mixed the 2 Calypso, Negroni, and the whiskey sour, and it was amazing, that blend. And this is great. Has everyone done this?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I worked with my first brewing job. I worked with a guy called Paul. I don't think Paul will be watching this, but shout out to Paul. He worked at Young's for 20 years, and he was just being trained to be a brewer when Young's closed. So he came to us at the brewery I was working at to be trained to be a brewer, and he always talked about a beer called Ramrod and Special, which is like basically their barley wine and their special, and you blend them both together. And so I've always enjoyed blending a high ABV and a low ABV beer together to make a mid-range beer. And that's where this idea came from, which I hadn't done until now. So yeah.
All right, you've all just done this. So Nikki, what's your thoughts on the blend?
Beautiful. It's sweetness has really come out as well. It's
I thought that. Yeah.
Vanilla has really hit now.
Yeah. Roisin?
Yeah, agree. It's delicious. You've created a whole new beer, Sean.
Yeah.
Whole new. Done it next year.
Yeah. We'll do some blending notes in the next booklet.
Lisa?
It's amazing. I've got this leathery vanilla thing going on, and it's just beautiful.
Nice. I think that's a good fun thing to do. Right, let's before we forget, give you the answer to what Willie or how Willie likes to enjoy his chocolate. Bear with me a minute. Sorry, I have to upload this. There it is. Right. What did everyone say? Remind me.
Cocoa butter.
Cocoa butter.
I
Sean
went for
said
smoothies.
On his eggs in the morning.
Smoothies, and Roisin's was 2x rated. Let's have a look.
It is. I make my own bread, half an avocado, 2 fried duck eggs, they're in the garden. I grate the cacao over the eggs. I splash it with chili sauce, and that's it. It's the ultimate breakfast.
Yes, isn't he amazing? I remember him talking about this before, and I've never tried it, and I really, really want to try it. Eggs on chocolate. Chocolate on eggs. You know you're obsessed with chocolate when you're having it on your eggs.
I didn't think that was going to be the thing, but he said it a few years ago in the talk, and yeah, nice. I think he actually does it every morning.
Yeah, he said every day of his life he has his eggs and chocolate on the eggs.
I don't think a Freddo grated onto an egg will be the same, so I definitely should order.
Yes.
Cacao.
You probably need to use the really high quality thing.
Yeah.
Because I said high quality, it's time for another questions with Darren. Only it's not the questions. I'm going to show you the outtakes with Darren. Sorry, Darren. Check it off.
So salted cherry Negroni is this year's variant. Salted cherry, yeah. So salted, brilliant. So with Death by yeah, okay. Since giving the night, love to so salted, no, because I nearly did it again. Death by CCC. Amberana adds such an interesting, no, that's not what we wanted, was it? The question is, since giving the Death by CCC, with that, I got Negronis on the mind. Whatever.
There we go. that's what it's like filming with Darren.
So-
has he been sampling? No, this was about 10 a.m. this morning.
So I'm going to defend Darren a little bit here, Tim. So turning pictures up with a bunch of lights and cameras, he's very professional, but it puts pressure on you when he's filming you. But also last night we went out for a few beers in Reading with a few of the crew from Siren, and we just have this habit of ending up drinking Negronis. So I think that played a little part to him.
Yeah, which is why I had Negronis on the mind, right?
Yeah, I'm glad he's not a one-hit wonder. So I'm not either. So it's maybe the pressure from you, but yeah. Anyway,
Sean, you say turns up with cameras and stuff. So let me just here's my setup here with.
Yeah, look at that lighting. Good job. You're a professional, Tim. You know what you're doing.
I do, although now I've got echoes because I've got two cameras on the go. So there you go. So all right, so there we go. We've been asked about barrel aged as well. A lot of people have been asking about that. There is some in barrel. Sean, any ideas of when we're going to be seeing this out, or is it just a case of that beer sitting in those barrels and giving it some time?
First of all, this is the first sip I've had of the blend where suddenly Amarana just came back to the forefront. So that's really cool. I think we made a decision last year where we talked the year before where we looked at it and we thought we are setting this beer to be released on a time where on a release date at least, where the way we look at barrel beers is they tell us when it's ready. And I think it's been a great decision to separate barrel aged CCC from this project. We're also looking at trying to remove barrel aged beers from our canning line as much as we can. So we got our bottling line for that. So it all worked as a nice little thing to just separate it. We will always have Caribbean chocolate cake in barrels. The blend will be able to be done. Steve does an incredible job in the barrel store, managing Maiden, Caribbean chocolate cake, all our milk stouts and our grain stouts, and then the wild stuff that we got as well. So it's something that we want to let it tell us when it's ready, and I think removing it from that, and it will be released. It will be enjoyed. I think leaving it a little bit longer last year when we released it earlier
Definitely
this year was like it's one of our greatest barrel beers I think we've released from internal discussions, and I think let's let the beer tell us when it's ready rather than release it in November every year.
Sean, so a couple of things you've said there was wild beers and one of the greatest barrel beers we've released, which reminds me that one of our panel who brews wild beers, Nikki, one of your Untapped reviews from a few weeks ago was 2019. Damn, that's aged well, gorgeous. Do you remember what beer that was?
That's a Siren one, I know that.
It was a Siren one. And it was called Dark and Perilous Nights.
Dark and Perilous Nights, yeah.
Which is our highest ever rated beer in 10 years of brewing. Dark and Perilous Nights is our highest ever rated barrel aged beer, or highest ever rated beer. This Dark and Perilous Nights isn't from 2019. This Dark and Perilous Nights is from 2023. Dark and Perilous Nights is back.
Really?
Oh, good Lord. Wow. And I'm very, very excited to try this. And I'm so sorry that you guys haven't got this, but me and Sean do.
Any plans for another ice book?
Yes, we will. We we might actually do a lager ice bock.
Really?
A buck the way ice bock. We were talking about this week. I think Dark and Perilous Nights is such an interesting beer for me. I picked the worst bottle opener. I can't open it. When I joined Siren, Dark and Perilous Nights was in barrel, sorry, and it was a beer that we had originally brewed with Jay Wakefield. It was meant to be something we called Dark and Stormy, and we decided to taste the barrels, me and Steve, and they were just incredible. And we were just like, we don't need to turn this into Dark and Stormy, so changed from Dark and Stormy to Dark and Perilous, and we released it as it was. So it's actually a dark ale, not a stout. Which the definition people can email me if they want to know about. But it was a different way of brewing it, less roast notes. And I had a fond memory of this beer because we put it on at a beer festival. It was a Brewed by Numbers beer festival a few years ago, by the River Festival, which was a great festival. And we were in the little corner where the electricity kept tripping, it was just one of those things that happened. And we had set a time to put this beer on, and it literally ran out of the electricity. They just gave up putting on. We had our Linda you didn't need it to be cold, but to dispense. But the only thing is we didn't have any pressure in the compressor pushing the keg in. So I ended up standing with the keg. It was only a 10-liter keg on my shoulder while pouring beer for people. And there was a line of maybe 3 people when I started that. And then suddenly people were like, oh, what's going on here? And they just came in and I ended up having to stand with this 10-liter keg on my shoulder for about 20 or 30 minutes while people just came. And because there was some theatrical thing going on, which wasn't meant to be, it was just I was trying to get the people that wanted the beer. And then everyone just started coming and drinking it. It ended up being a lot of people's beer at the festival because I think it's still one of the best beers we've ever made. And it was such a fun little thing to do in the corner that we were in, that people weren't circulating through at the time, to having everyone coming through there. It was really awesome. So I've got a real special spot for this beer, and I love this year's version. Like Steve's done a great job with the blend again. It's just such an interesting beer.
It's amazing. And Adrian, you don't have this, but as of today, they are exclusively available in Clapton Craft for 1 week. Bit of a nice thing for Clapton Craft there. And then we will have it for sale from Friday next week. So join the mailing list, go to sirencraftbrew.com/newsletter, sirencraftbrew.com/newsletter. We're going to have some fun, not Black Friday, Dark and Perilous Friday stuff going on next week. So make sure you're on the newsletter, and this will be in your hands. It is incredible, Sean. I hadn't tasted this until now. That's as good as I remember it. Everything I want that beer to be, like chocolatey, but those rich sort of barrel notes and boozy notes. That's absolutely glorious.
It's the mouthfeel and the slickness, and there's no adjuncts added to this. This is what it's so beautiful about. The chocolate notes are just incredible. From chocolate. It's just from barrels, malts, and it's such a good beer.
I'm going to be in big trouble because I've had a bit of these beers, and there's absolutely no way I'm pouring that Dark and Perilous Nights away. My 1-year-old is upstairs crying his eyes out. He's got someone with him, obviously, but he's very ill. So we're in for a really difficult evening, but I'm definitely finishing that beer. So it's going to be an interesting night. Does anyone else have any more comments about Caribbean Chocolate Cake this year? Like what you've enjoyed about it, what you want to see? Any other questions from the crowd that you want Sean to answer, or any questions from you guys on the tasting panel?
I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay, but not associated with CCC technically.
Ask away.
So, Sean, what would you never put together? So 2 flavours you'd never, or several flavours. So I've already said crisps, but I saw someone in the comments go, Northern Monk's already done that. So, and it's
Yeah.
terrible. Please don't. And what autonomy do you have when you're brewing? So can you just go, right, I want bloody this and this, and someone shakes their head and goes, Sean, that will never go together. And you're like, well, let's just do it and find out what happens. And so twofold question, really. So what 2 flavors you never put together, and what autonomy do you have when you're brewing?
I think there's probably lots of things that shouldn't go together, but one thing that links to this, like I said, I found cacao and smoked malt don't work, and I found cacao and coffee don't work well. You can make them work, but for me, it's they compete a little bit. I think one of the beers that I think we did, we made a beer called Marginal Grains quite a few years ago, and this beer was a beer with a really cool brewery. I really enjoyed the idea behind it. It was a really good chef from Copenhagen.
Broaden and Build, they were called.
Yeah, Broaden and Build was the brewery. Really interesting guys. The chef was an executive chef from
It was
Noma.
No, it was Matt
Matt,
Orlando, who was at the time when Noma was the best restaurant in the world. He was the head chef.
Yeah, so incredible guy with flavors and stuff, and we got the opportunity to brew with him. It was really awesome. I ended up having to be away on a holiday at the time, so we agreed the recipe. We got some ideas. They were going to forage some stuff. They found a really good forager in the UK that did the foraging for them. While I was on holiday, about a day before the brew, Matt sent me an email going, "Oh, we can't forage. I can't remember what the ingredient that we're meant to do, but we could replace it with fennel flowers." And I was like, "Fennel flowers? Shit! Like, is that going to be good?" I just thought it would be like aniseed and licorice. But I was away and I couldn't reply. And anyway, apparently the brew day was really fun with everyone, including Darren, picking the forage stuff apart. Quite a lot of hard work while I was at the music festival, enjoying myself. I saw photos sending me.
I'll just say, Sean, the whole brewery just smelt amazing that day.
Yeah,
and it was quite incredible to see Darren and one of the greatest chefs in the world and your brew team sort of sat there, and everyone was just sat around on chairs, just picking little bits of like herbs away.
Yeah,
it was great.
And it was great. And I put that in the brew. And then I got back from holiday and we tasted the beer, and it literally just tasted like licorice. We chose to do an American wheat ale, so thinking it would be cloudy. We didn't add any hops because it was just these foraged flowers, and it ended up crystal clear and just really like aniseed, licoricey. And we tasted it every day, going like we wanted to dump the beer. But actually, the more we tasted it, the more we realized it was exactly what we were trying to do. And it was a real hard thing to get our head around, because it wasn't meant to be aniseed and licorice. But actually, because we put that flower in, it kind of showcased it perfectly. And I think in the end, the beer was incredible. It was such a nice beer for going with like a curry or something like that. It was such a great beer for that. But also, if you weren't expecting it to be aniseed or licorice, you were in for a bad time. So it was a hard beer to get everyone to enjoy. But I actually was really proud of the beer in the end. But it was one of the beers that we nearly dumped. But then we were actually like, if a beer is meant to have fennel seeds in, it needs to taste like fennel seeds, fennel flowers, and it was great in the end. But it took us a readjustment to get to that. Funny
enough, Sean, I really dislike both aniseed and fennel and licorice, and I really liked Marginal Grains. I thought it was a great beer. And we had when we did the comeback votes, we had quite a few votes for Marginal Grains. Surprising.
I'll tell you something really weird. But it links to your question. Is I rushed home from work one night. I got home to meet people out. All I had time to do was a quick shower, brush my teeth, grab the first can out the fridge, and I had to walk across the park to get to the pub because I'd driven home and I was running late. I wanted to have a beer for a quick walk. And you normally don't want to drink a beer straight after you brush your teeth. But Marginal Grains, after you brush your teeth, just turn to fruit. it was such an incredible thing. Like toothpaste and fennel seeds turned to fruit to me. It was incredible. And I don't recommend that to be put on the can or anything like that. But it was a really cool experience. So it's two things that randomly went together rather than didn't go together.
To add, Roisin, on the how much autonomy does Sean have to do what he wants to do? I think you could pretty much do whatever you want, Sean. Don't you? We've experimented with some pretty weird things at Siren. There's always a bit of a running joke with this is the most expensive beer we've ever produced, and Darren is a very shrewd and good businessman, which is one of the reasons we've lasted 10 years. But he's also a real fan of having fun with brewing, and independence in brewing as well, and just doing what he needs to do, and to keep it fun as well. So whilst he's also sort of looking out for things, he's also in charge of making sure we still have fun with stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right, and we shouted out to quite a few people. I think Darren, massive shout out. Like, he is the innovator that drives the
100%.
ideas. He doesn't want to settle for the ordinary. He pushes us, and it's so great to have that from the top down. Like, if we want to do something, let's push it. So yeah, it's great.
Question here in the comments, Sean. We love the collab with Clays. Any more planned with the local indies?
I think yes, definitely. Like, we want to work with like local people more. I think everything's localizing, and it's important for us. It's important for people to reach out to us to see what we can do. We've done a collab this week with a small brewery in Southampton that one of our salespeople live near and works. Dancing Man, and great to have them around. They walked around they got a brew pub. We walked around our brewery going, look at that! Wow! And it's great for us to have people like that in and help support them. And we learned some stuff from them. They came up with the recipe idea, and we played around with a new ingredient. It's awesome that beer's going to come out. I think like Reading is such a hub for us. It's important. We want to work with them as much as we can, like local businesses and Clay's is such an amazing restaurant. If anyone hasn't been there, like, get yourself down to Clay's for a meal. It's such a great restaurant.
Clay's, by the way, is sort of Hyderabad's Indian street food restaurant in Caversham in Reading. We made a beer called Mango Milkshake APA for them. It was a beer that was brewed by someone else that Nandana from Clay's loved, and she came to us and said, this was this beer I loved, could you make something like it? So we made Mango Milkshake. Absolutely delicious. Andy's just said in the comments, Grumpy Goat was due to be our next collab, which is a real shame. We had plans for Grumpy Goat collab, which is a really massive loss for Reading. So big up the Grumpy Goat crew.
Yeah, I started building the recipe for that. It's not ideal. It's so sad. But yeah.
But yeah, indies are important to us. Any other questions from the panel for Sean? Not for me. I'm slurring for Sean.
Can I please come and see the Spinbot?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you based, Lisa?
Near Reading, so very local to you guys.
Oh, sure. Come by anytime you want. Have a look around. Yeah, the Spinbot's fantastic piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's just all the beers now. I feel like I need to see it.
Yeah. We are gonna commission Spinbot to just to keep us going, not to innovate and make it better. We want to make the same thing. The Spinbot is also a vessel that's got lots of dents on it, and I love the story of some distilleries in Scotland that have been hit by a fork truck, and now that dent in the still is part of the flavor. So that when they redesign a new still or they expand and they get bigger, they build it in with that dent. And I think the Spinbot, I feel like that way with it, that we've got to get a new vessel and get a hammer to it and damage it a little bit just to get it the same. So, yeah.
That's the intricacies of a brew house, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
It is.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Don't forget there's a thing down the bottom of the screen at the moment with CCC Live. If you head to sirencraftbrew.com, you will get 15% off across everything on the web shop this weekend. By the way, we're down to, I think, around 40 advent calendars left. So if you want to get yourself a discount, go and get your advent calendar. The advent calendar, the cost of the beers is more than you'll pay for the price of the advent calendar. That's last year's price has been locked in. This is our best value calendar to date. And someone asked the question, all 4 of these CCC beers are in the advent calendar. Absolute spoiler alert. There's 28 left, and he's just told me. So, and that is a hard number. We've only got that many to go. Couple of beers canned today, which went into it. Roosters collab, won't tell you much about that. And a red IPA that I think is called Liquid Mistress. Some people might have heard of that. But there we go. So go and get yourself an advent calendar. Sean, thank you very much for your comments this evening. Really interesting. Always listening to you and learning about brewing. I love it. Nikki, Lisa, Neushin, thank you so much for joining us as well. Thank you so much for taking the time out to review the beers early on and send us your thoughts and comments. Really, really lovely. And thank you to everyone as well who's watched in and enjoyed it. Any last comments for anyone?
I've just seen Brett's comment. It's on the cards, I think. Not officially, but I met someone in France who works for them. Someone we want to work with. So they're engineers, and I'm an engineer originally. So yes, great brewery.
John's the smart one. Lovely. Thank you everyone so much for joining us this year for CCC. Keep enjoying the beers. They are still available at sirencraftbrew.com, and remember CCC Live for 15% off this weekend. Grab yourself an advent calendar. While you're there, pre-order some Christmas jumpers. We've got some lovely CCC merch on offer as well, like jumpers and t-shirts. And that's my son in the background who needs some attention, so we're going to go and see him. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone else. Thank you for everything. Cool. Cheers.
Bye-bye.